The sun is blazing down mercilessly on the ancient city of Rome. The air is thick with dust, sweat, and anticipation. 50,000 voices rise as one, creating a thunderous roar that shakes the very foundations of the Colosseum. Below, in the arena, a man stands alone on blood-soaked sand, his heart pounding like a war drum. He grips his sword tighter, knowing that in the next few moments he'll either walk away a hero or be carried out as a corpse. In the heart of Rome, beneath the roaring crowds and the scorching sun, men fought not just for survival, but for glory. Were they celebrated heroes, or merely slaves to a brutal spectacle? This is the question that has haunted historians for centuries. When you hear the word gladiator, what comes to mind? Perhaps you think of Russell Crowe in leather armor, or maybe images of noble warriors fighting for honor and freedom. But here's the thing that might surprise you. The reality was far more complex, far more brutal, and infinitely more fascinating than anything Hollywood has ever shown us. What does it truly mean to be a gladiator? Were these warriors symbols of courage and honor, or just pawns in a deadly game of empire and entertainment? The answer isn't as simple as you might think. Some gladiators were indeed slaves, captured in distant lands and forced to fight for their lives. Others were criminals, given a chance to die with dignity rather than face execution. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some were free men who voluntarily entered the arena, drawn by the promise of fame, fortune, and the intoxicating roar of the crowd. Imagine being so desperate for glory that you'd willingly sign your life away to become a professional killer. That's exactly what many Romans did. They traded their freedom for a chance at immortality, knowing full well that most gladiators died within their first year in the arena. Today, we journey back to the blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum to uncover the truth behind Rome's most infamous fighters. We're going to peel back the layers of myth and legend to reveal what life was really like for these warriors. We'll explore their training, their fears, their dreams, and yes, their brutal deaths. We'll discover how a funeral ritual evolved into the greatest spectacle the ancient world had ever seen, and how an empire used blood and sand to control the hearts and minds of its people. But be warned, this isn't a story for the faint of heart. This is a tale of human beings pushed to their absolute limits, where survival meant entertaining those who held your life in their hands. It's a story about what happens when society's hunger for entertainment becomes more important than human dignity. Want to know how these warriors shaped history? Stay with us until the end. And don't forget to subscribe to Imperium Chronicles for more epic tales. Like, share, and join the adventure. Because trust me, by the time we're done, you'll never look at ancient Rome the same way again. Picture yourself in ancient Rome, 264 years before Christ. 3 pairs of warriors face each other in a solemn funeral ceremony. Their weapons gleam in the sunlight as they prepare to honor the dead with their blood. This was the humble beginning of what would become Rome's greatest spectacle. But how did a simple funeral ritual transform into the grand entertainment that filled the mighty Colosseum? The answer lies in the complex nature of Roman society itself. What began as a way to honor deceased nobles through ritual combat slowly evolved into something far more elaborate. Wealthy Romans, always eager to outdo one another, began staging increasingly larger and more spectacular funeral games. The fighters themselves came from every corner of the vast Roman Empire. Captured warriors from distant lands brought their unique fighting styles to the arena. Convicted criminals faced a choice: certain death or a chance at glory in the sand. Slaves, their lives already forfeit to their masters, were thrust into combat training. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Not everyone was forced into this bloody profession. Believe it or not, some free men actually volunteered to become gladiators. They signed contracts knowing full well they might die in the arena. What would drive someone to make such a choice? The answer is simple: fame and fortune. Successful gladiators became the rock stars of their day. They earned fortunes in prize money, attracted admirers, and even endorsed products. Yes, product endorsements existed even in ancient Rome. From those first 6 warriors fighting in a funeral game, gladiatorial combat exploded in popularity. By the time the Colosseum reached its peak, thousands of gladiators would fight each year. The sands of the arena would witness countless battles, turning ordinary men into legends. These warriors came to embody the very spirit of Rome itself: strength, courage, and the eternal quest for glory. Whether they were prisoners dreaming of freedom or volunteers seeking fame, they all shared one thing in common. The moment they stepped into the arena, they became part of something larger than themselves. They became gladiators, and their legacy would echo through the centuries to come. Let me take you inside the arena, where the very air crackled with tension and excitement. Imagine standing there, sword in hand, as 50,000 voices roar from above. The sound is deafening, but it's not just noise. It's the very voice that could determine whether you live or die. Hollywood has painted a picture of constant death and slaughter in the arena, but the reality tells a different tale. Would you be surprised to learn that only 1 in 10 gladiatorial battles actually ended in death? The truth is, these warriors were incredibly valuable assets. Think about it. Their training was expensive, their skills took years to perfect, and their popularity drew massive crowds. No sensible lanista or gladiator trainer wanted to lose such a precious investment. The decision of life or death wasn't as simple as modern movies would have you believe. When a gladiator was defeated, the crowd and the editor, the person hosting the games, would consider various factors. How well did the fighter perform? Did he show courage? Did he entertain the crowd? The famous thumb gesture wasn't even what we think. Historical evidence suggests that a hidden thumb meant death, while a shown thumb meant life, the complete opposite of what we see in films today. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of life in the arena were the superstars it created. Take Flama, for example, a Syrian fighter who was offered his freedom not once, not twice, but 4 times. And each time he shocked everyone by choosing to remain a gladiator. He fought 34 times, won 21 fights, drew 9 times, and lost only 4 battles. His story tells us something remarkable about the allure of the arena. For some, the glory of combat was more appealing than freedom itself. And then there was Spartacus, whose name still echoes through history. Before he became the legendary leader of the largest slave rebellion Rome had ever seen, he was a gladiator who had once been a free man. His journey from Thracian warrior to enslaved gladiator to rebel leader captivated the imagination of Romans and continues to fascinate us today. Life in the arena was a complex dance between skill, showmanship, and survival. These warriors weren't just fighting for their lives. They were performing, building reputations, and sometimes even choosing this dangerous life willingly. Their stories remind us that the line between glory and death was often as thin as the edge of a gladius blade, and the roar of the crowd could mean either eternal fame or final silence. Behind the clash of swords and the roar of crowds lay a darker truth. The gladiatorial games were as much about money and power as they were about entertainment. Let me show you how deep this rabbit hole really goes. Consider Emperor Trajan, who organized 123 days of games. That's 4 whole months of continuous spectacle. But why would a ruler invest such enormous resources into these shows? The answer lies in an ancient political strategy. Keep the people distracted, and you can maintain control. While citizens were enthralled by the games, they weren't focusing on poverty, corruption, or social problems. As one Roman poet cynically observed, all the people really wanted was bread and circuses. The business of blood was incredibly profitable. Lanistas, the owners and trainers of gladiators, became some of the wealthiest people in the empire. Think of them as ancient sports team owners, but with much higher stakes. They ran gladiatorial schools, traded fighters like precious commodities, and rented their warriors to wealthy Romans for enormous sums. Some Lanistas became so rich and influential that emperors had to create laws limiting their power. But the empire itself was the biggest player in this deadly game. By staging increasingly spectacular shows, Rome demonstrated its absolute power to both citizens and foreign visitors. Imagine the message sent when exotic animals from the farthest reaches of the empire fought in the arena, or when warriors from conquered nations were forced to battle each other. It was a brutal display of Rome's vast reach and complete dominance. For the gladiators themselves, money could indeed buy freedom, but only for a lucky few. The most successful fighters earned substantial prizes, appearance fees, and even endorsement deals. Some managed to save enough to purchase their freedom, becoming free men once again. But for every success story, countless others met a different fate. Most gladiators died in obscurity, their names lost to history, their blood soaking into the arena's sand. The economics of the games revealed Rome's greatest contradiction. Here was a civilization that gave us timeless art, architecture, and philosophy, yet built an entire industry around systematic violence. They wrote elegant poetry about honor and virtue, while thousands died for entertainment. The empire prided itself on bringing civilization to the world, yet celebrated the most uncivilized spectacles imaginable. This dark paradox forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about human nature itself. When a society builds its entertainment on human suffering, can it truly call itself civilized? As we look back at this blood-soaked business, we might wonder, have we really changed so much? Or do we just package our violence differently today? Think about that as we continue our journey through the remarkable story of Rome's gladiators. What price would you put on human life? And when does entertainment cross the line into exploitation? What drives thousands of people to gather in one place, screaming themselves hoarse for their favorite fighters? The answer hasn't changed much in 2,000 years. Let me show you why the games held such a powerful grip on the Roman psyche and how that same attraction still echoes in our world today. The phrase bread and circuses wasn't just a clever saying, it was a calculated political strategy. Roman authorities understood that a hungry population was dangerous, but a well-fed and entertained populace was manageable. Free grain distributions kept bellies full, while the games kept minds occupied. It was the perfect combination to maintain social order. The psychology behind the game's popularity was fascinating. Imagine living in ancient Rome. Life was often harsh, short, and mundane for the average citizen. But when game day arrived, everything changed. Suddenly, you were part of something massive and exciting. The Colosseum became a place where a poor plebeian could sit relatively close to a wealthy senator, where everyone could voice their opinions by cheering or booing, where for a few hours all social barriers seemed to blur. Romans developed an intense emotional connection to their favorite gladiators. They collected souvenirs, painted graffiti about famous fighters, and even used gladiator blood and sweat in love potions and medicines. Children played with gladiator action figures made of clay. Women swooned over their favorite warriors. Sound familiar? It's not so different from today's sports merchandise, fan clubs, and celebrity worship. Yet here's where things get darker. The same crowd that idolized these fighters could also call for their death without hesitation. They could cheer for a gladiator one moment and demand his execution the next. This strange mix of adoration and disposability created a unique form of entertainment that was both personally engaging and utterly detached from human empathy. Now let's look in the mirror. We might not watch actual gladiatorial combat today, but haven't we just found new ways to satisfy the same human cravings? Mixed martial arts matches draw millions of viewers. Reality TV shows pit people against each other in emotional combat. Social media allows us to build up and tear down celebrities at will. We might not be calling for anyone's death, but are we really so different in our desire for spectacle and drama? The Romans were honest about their bloodlust. They built an enormous arena specifically for violent entertainment. We might package our spectacles differently today, might dress them up in more acceptable forms, but that fundamental human desire to watch conflict and competition remains unchanged. Think about the last time you couldn't look away from a fight video online or found yourself binge-watching a particularly dramatic reality show. That feeling you had? That's the same pull that drew Romans to the Colosseum day after day. The games might be gone, but their spirit lives on in ways we might not want to admit. Perhaps the most uncomfortable truth is this: the games didn't just reveal something about Roman society, they reveal something about human nature itself. Our fascination with spectacle, competition, and conflict hasn't diminished over 2 millennia. We've just found new arenas for it. Even the mightiest institutions must eventually fall, and the story of how the gladiatorial games came to an end is as fascinating as their bloody beginning. Let me take you through the final chapter of this remarkable era. As Rome entered the 4th century after Christ, winds of change were sweeping through the empire. Christianity was gaining momentum, and with it came new ideas about human dignity and the value of life. The games that had once been the heart of Roman entertainment were increasingly viewed through different eyes. Christian leaders began to speak out against what they saw as barbaric spectacles unworthy of a civilized society. But the games didn't end overnight. Think about how difficult it would be to ban something that had been central to your culture for more than 600 years. The gladiatorial contests were more than entertainment. They were part of Rome's very identity. Yet bit by bit, opposition grew stronger. The pivotal moment came in the year 404 after Christ. A dramatic event would finally tip the scales. As the story goes, a monk named Telemachus traveled to Rome and witnessed the games firsthand. Horrified by what he saw, he leaped into the arena to stop a fight. The crowd, angered by this interruption of their entertainment, stoned him to death. When Emperor Honorius heard of this tragedy, he was deeply moved. He issued an imperial decree banning gladiatorial combat throughout the empire. But old habits die hard. Just as prohibition doesn't immediately stop people from drinking, the ban didn't immediately end all gladiatorial combat. Underground fights continued in some areas, like speakeasies during Prohibition. The appetite for violent entertainment didn't disappear just because it was outlawed. Some historians believe informal gladiatorial contests continued for years in remote parts of the empire, away from official oversight. Today, the Colosseum stands as a powerful reminder of this complex chapter in human history. Its massive walls have witnessed both the heights of human courage and the depths of human cruelty. When you look at those ancient stones, you can almost hear the echoes of the crowd, the clash of weapons, the roars of triumph and despair. But perhaps the most profound legacy of the gladiators isn't found in the stone and marble of the Colosseum. It's in the questions their story forces us to ask ourselves. How could a society be capable of such remarkable achievements in art, literature, and law, while simultaneously celebrating such violence? What does it tell us about human nature that we could turn death into entertainment? The end of the gladiatorial games marked more than just the conclusion of a form of entertainment. It represented a fundamental shift in how society viewed human life and dignity. Yet even as we condemn the brutality of the arena, we can't help but be fascinated by the courage and skill of those who fought there. The gladiators may be gone, but their story continues to captivate us, challenging us to examine our own attitudes toward violence, entertainment, and human worth. Those weathered walls of the Colosseum stand as a testament to both humanity's capacity for cruelty and our ability to evolve beyond it. They remind us that civilizations can change, that what one generation celebrates, another may condemn, and that progress, while often slow, is possible. As we reach the heart of our question, let's pause and look deeper into the complex reality of these arena warriors. Were they truly heroes, or were they merely slaves trapped in a gilded cage? The truth, like many aspects of history, lies somewhere in between. Picture this: a skilled gladiator standing in the arena, muscles gleaming with oil, the crowd chanting his name. He's earned wealth, fame, and the admiration of thousands. Some, like the legendary Flamma, were even offered their freedom, not once but 4 times. Yet each time Flamma chose to return to the arena. Why? Because for some, the roar of the crowd became an addiction stronger than the desire for freedom itself. But let's not romanticize their reality. For every celebrated champion who dined with senators and enjoyed the attention of noble women, hundreds died in obscurity, their names forever lost to history. These men never chose their fate. They were prisoners of war, criminals or slaves thrown into a system that transformed human beings into entertainment. Consider this fascinating detail. Successful gladiators could negotiate better living conditions, choose their fighting style, and even demand appearance fees, much like modern athletes. Some became wealthy enough to buy their freedom, own property, and even become trainers themselves. They were, in a way, the sports celebrities of their time. Yet here's the brutal irony. Even the most famous gladiator was still bound by chains at night. Even the wealthiest champion could be killed at the whim of the crowd. Their glory was real, but their freedom was an illusion, carefully crafted by an empire that understood the power of spectacle. So were they heroes? Yes, in the sense that they faced death with courage, developed extraordinary skills, and sometimes rose above their circumstances to achieve greatness. Were they slaves? Also yes, slaves to an empire, slaves to the crowd's bloodlust, and slaves to a system that valued their deaths more than their lives. Perhaps that's what makes their story so compelling, even 2,000 years later. They were both heroes and slaves, victims and victors, celebrities and outcasts, a contradiction that perfectly embodied the glory and brutality of Rome itself. What do you think this says about our own society? About the way we treat our modern-day gladiators, our athletes, entertainers, and celebrities? Sometimes the most powerful lessons from history aren't found in what's different, but in what remains surprisingly the same. As the sun sets over the Colosseum today, its ancient stones still whisper stories of glory and despair. The tale of the gladiators isn't just a chapter in history books. It's a mirror reflecting our own society's complex relationship with entertainment, power, and human dignity. Think about it. While we no longer gather to watch literal battles to the death, don't we still crave spectacle? Don't we still turn human beings into entertainment? Our modern arenas might be sports stadiums, social media, or reality TV shows, but the fundamental question remains. At what point does entertainment cross the line into exploitation? The Romans would have scoffed at our moral qualms. To them, gladiatorial combat was the height of civilization, a demonstration of courage, skill, and the power of their empire. Yet they, too, had their critics. The philosopher Seneca once attended a gladiatorial show and left in disgust, writing, "Nothing is so damaging to good character as spending time at one of these spectacles." Here's a fascinating detail that brings it all home. Archaeologists have discovered ancient graffiti where Roman children drew pictures of their favorite gladiators, just as today's youth might sketch their sports heroes or movie stars. Some things about human nature never change, but perhaps that's the most valuable lesson the gladiators can teach us. Their story forces us to examine our own values, our own forms of entertainment, our own definitions of heroism. When we look into the arena of our modern world, what do we see? What compromises do we make in the name of entertainment? What injustices do we overlook in pursuit of spectacle? The gladiators' legacy lives on, not just in the ruins of the Colosseum, but in the questions they force us to ask ourselves. Questions about courage and cowardice, freedom and slavery, entertainment and exploitation. Questions that are just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. If you found yourself thinking differently about this piece of history, give this video a thumbs up. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Were the gladiators heroes who made the best of their circumstances, or victims of a cruel system? Or perhaps, like so many things in history, the truth is more complex than either option. Don't forget to subscribe to Imperium Chronicles for more deep dives into history's most fascinating stories. From the rise and fall of empires to the intimate lives of history's forgotten figures, we're here to explore the past in all its complicated glory. Hit that notification bell to join us on our next historical adventure. Until then, remember, history isn't just about understanding the past. It's about understanding ourselves.